manage a small law firm, and excited to dive into another webinar this time around. Last month, we sort of just covered the high-level overview of mindset when running a legal practice, how to operate more efficiently, more effectively, maybe limit some of the negative mindsets or negative beliefs that you may have, and then use that this time around to sort of start laying more of the fundamental foundation of really starting to scale the business to the next level. But in order to scale a business, you have to know where you're going. You have to have the plan in order to really get things implemented. So this month's session, we're going to be talking about a business plan for a law firm, really the structure of it, how to set it up, why it's important, how you really use this as a primary jumping off point to really take things to the next level when it comes to the implementation, the execution, and at least having a roadmap with which you can, move forward to really focus on and grow your practice. So excited for another month. It's going to be another awesome session. Arjan, I think the first thing that I wanted to sort of lead off with as we start covering all of this is just some of the fundamentals of what you categorize as the 7 parts of a legal practice, because we can certainly have a business plan, but if we don't have sort of a fundamental framework of these 7 elements, then what are we building off of? What is the point? And sort of just use that as an initial jumping off point. So if you could sort of touch on what you would categorize as the 7 parts of a legal practice.
Sure. And thanks again for having me. I appreciate you taking the initiative to organize these webinars. I think we're helping a lot of people build more successful law firms, which of course, a successful law firm is a byproduct of, first and foremost, how many people the law firm helps, all things being equal. $1 million law firm, for example, is helping twice as many people as a $500,000 law firm, and so on and so forth. So when I see people like you doing things like this that create resources to help lawyers build more successful law firms. And I understand part of the reason you're doing it is because you want to reduce the risk of malpractice. But a successful law firm tends to also be a lower risk of malpractice. So it's a very symbiotic thing. Anyway, long story short, what I've observed, and this is an observation, this is not a prescription. I've observed since 1999, when I started working with solo and small law firms, that there are 7 main parts of every successful law firm. And there are the same 7 main parts of every struggling law firm. And I just found that when you break them down into their 7 main parts, each part becomes easier to wrap your head around and easier to manage and easier to improve. So the 7 main parts are marketing. Marketing is everything that we do to drive the right kinds of clients with the right kinds of cases to the right place at the right time in the right state of mind. So they're already preconditioned and predisposed to want to hire your firm. A leading cause of malpractice is bad marketing. Bad marketing that drives the wrong kind of clients, bad marketing that drives inconsistent clients, bad marketing that drives great clients with the wrong cases, bad marketing that drives great clients with great cases, but with incorrect expectations. It sets up a cascading effect that results in low profits, low morale, high stress, and of course, malpractice claims. The second main part is sales. Sales is everything that a law firm does to systematically, consistently, predictably, reliably, professionally, and ethically convert the prospective client into a paying client. Bad sales processes lead to malpractice actions. Bad sales processes lead to cash flow problems. Bad sales processes lead to a lot of attorney stress. Bad sales processes lead to a lot of problems with staff morale. It all kind of goes together. That's the second main part, is everything that's being done to systematically convert prospective new clients into paying clients. The third main part are the business processes themselves. The business processes, how do files get opened consistently, predictably, reliably, the same way every time? How do files get processed consistently, predictably, reliably, as often as possible? And when I say as often as possible, Dre, everyone loves to say, well, you can't make it's not always the same. Every case is a little bit different. And that's true, but when you build consistent, predictable workflow processes, you find that about 60% of the time, the cases go pretty much according to plan. 20% of the time they go better, 20% of the time they go worse. And then you manage the outliers, but let 60% of it just go according to plan. When you do this, you reduce the risk of malpractice. You increase the attorney's ability to leverage their brilliance. You're able to help a lot more clients a lot more efficiently. The firm has better cash flow. Staff morale is higher. I mean, everyone's better off, including and especially the clients. The fourth main part are the people. The people work the processes and the procedures. Written job descriptions, key performance indicators, objective measurements of performance, so that you can hire people objectively, train them professionally, manage them humanely, and run your business profitably, which is really much better for your clients, reduces the risk of malpractice because you don't have people burned out and frustrated and miscommunicating all the time. I mean, so many malpractice actions really could have been avoided with better communications. It's just simple miscommunications going on between the staff. I mean, there's so many stories. It's like almost a cliche in the world of legal malpractice and law firm management of the law firm that gets sued for malpractice because they blew a deadline because the attorney told the secretary to file something and the secretary filed it in a filing cabinet. Anyway, I mean, these things happen all the time. It's almost a joke, but it would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic. The next main part, so marketing leads to sales, sales production, production people. People need things to work with. They need a place to work. This is the physical plant. The office, the furniture, the equipment, the software, the checklist, the templates, the client list, the marketing assets, the intellectual property of the firm is all part of the physical plant of the firm. At the risk of repeating myself, there's a big correlation between how well this stuff is thought through, planned out, organized, and managed, and profitability, and cash flow, and attorney stress, and staff morale, and the ability to recruit and train and keep the best superstars, and malpractice actions. I got to keep mentioning malpractice actions since this whole thing is being sponsored by the Daniels Head Malpractice Insurance Agency. So I know you care about that. Marketing leads to sales, sales leads to production, production leads to people, people need stuff, that physical plant, which brings us to financial controls. It's a law firm. Yes, it's a law firm. We are lawyers. Yes, we are lawyers. We have a profession. Yes, we have a profession. And also, it's a business. And as such, the business needs to have financial controls, a 12-month forward-looking budget variance report, cash flow projections, accounts receivables reports. If these terms and phrases are scaring anyone, rest assured, I didn't know them either before I went to law school. I sure didn't learn about them in law school. I learned about them when I worked as a small law practice management advisor with the Florida Bar's Law Office Management Assistance Service for 4 years. And I learned this stuff. And believe me, and Dre can tell you, I can't do math. We've been out for dinner. You see me trying to figure out. You don't have to do math to master the financial controls of a law firm. This is one of the most exciting things is when you take a lawyer who's been scared of math their whole life, and so they've been ignoring or maybe not paying as much attention to the financial controls of their law firm, and they get all the bad problems that flow from not paying enough attention to the financials of the law firm, cash flow problems, profitability problems, staffing problems, and yes, malpractice problems, flow from bad cash flow management. And I can prove it and I can explain it in ways that everyone will understand. But one of the cool things, it's so much fun to see a lawyer who's been ignoring their financials because they think, oh, I'm not a math person. And you show them that it's got nothing to do with math. There's no math involved. There's no math required, really. Just simple addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, all stuff you do on a calculator, right? There's no real complicated math. It's all concepts and ideas. And I promise you, if you can get through law school and understand the concepts and the legal concepts and ideas that we all deal with, you can master the financial controls of a law firm. Marketing leads to sales, sales leads to production, production leads to people, people need physical plan. You get it all done right. You got financial controls. And then, of course, you've got the goals, the financial goals, the personal goals, and the professional goals of the owner. And everything revolves around the goals of the owner. The financial goals, the personal goals, the professional goals of the owner drive the marketing, drive the sales, drive the production, dictate aspects of the physical plan, really drive the financial controls and everything else. Those are the 7 main parts. They're there in every successful law firm. They're there in every struggling law firm. The difference between the struggling law firms and the successful law firms is the degree to which these 7 main parts are attended to or ignored.
That's, I think, an awesome foundational element before we dive into some of the other elements here.
Sure.
So you mentioned in closing out that the goals of the owner are what the drivers are. Now, we talked a little bit last time about the mindset, the components, some of the limiting beliefs, those elements like that. Why? I want to sort of get into the why. So when you talk about goals, if someone has not been around other attorneys who've been doing $500,000 or $1 million a year, some of those limiting beliefs that we talked about last time, well, maybe there's a ceiling that they think that they'll have. If an attorney is, they know that they should create a business plan, or they know that they should at least have a better understanding of some of these elements, why is it that they should start with their why? Why does that become one of the driving factors to actually, be the starting place to actually execute some of these things? And why is that why so important to a lot of small law firms?
Well, I thought you were going somewhere different with the question, so I was kind of preparing to answer it one way. But you kind of
well, I'll tell you, go the direction
end.
that you were going to go, and I'll loop back and maybe close the loop.
Well, I'll answer both of them. What I thought you were going with is, why do lawyers resist establishing financial goals?
That was going to be my next question.
Okay. So then let me answer why in my experience, the lawyers tend to resist establishing financial goals first, and then we'll get to the next question, or the other question, which I totally forgot. I'm sorry.
Why is it important to have the why? Why does that act as the driving factor?
Okay, let me answer that one first then.
So rock and roll.
Okay. So let's say your goal is to take, I'm just going to make up a number, $200,000 out of your firm as what we call total owner benefits. That's your W-2 salary, your K-1 profits, and all the expenses that a good tax strategist will help you figure out how to run through the business. Let's say the total package is $200,000. You got it? You say, to live the way I want to live in the house I want to live in, to drive the car I want to drive, to take the vacations I want to take, to give my children the education I want to give them, to have the domestic services that I want to employ, to help out the family who need help, charities, whatever it is. Let's just say the whole package is $200,000. The number is irrelevant to this conversation. We just need a number, and I'm calling it $200,000 to illustrate the point. Now you figure out that your law firm is going to run at, let's just say, a 25% total owner benefit margin, meaning $200,000 is 25% of gross revenue, meaning if the firm grossed $1, it would give 25 cents of total owner benefits, right? So $200,000, let's call it $250,000 because the math will be even more easy, right? $250,000 is 25% of $1 million, right? If you need 250,000, I use 200 in the example, but let's call it $250,000 to live the way you want to live, which is not a particularly luxurious, I mean, you're not flying around in a private jet on $250,000 a year. There's no butler answering the door in white gloves and a long tuxedo like Richie Rich cartoons when we were kids. That's not how you're living on $250,000. It's a reasonably modest lifestyle on $250,000, right? The difference between a person who's living on $150,000 and $250,000 is only around, after taxes, $6,000 a month, right? You're living in a slightly better house. You're driving a slightly better car. You have slightly better vacations. And most of it is you probably have more disability insurance and more life insurance and less debt. So it's not like outwardly that much different between $150,000 and $250,000, but that's besides the point. We're getting into the next part of the question. $250,000 is 25% of $1 million. All right, so now we know that to live the way you want to live, if your business is going to run at a 25% total owner benefit margin, which is a pretty reasonable number for most law firms, the firm's got to gross $1 million. Okay, now $1 million has a reason. Now it's grounded in a purpose. Now there's something about it that matters to us, right? To live in this house requires $1 million firm. To drive this car requires $1 million firm. To give my children this education requires $1 million firm. There's now a reason for the $1 million firm, a business reason for the $1 million firm. You got it? All right. Now, let's say your average case value is, let's just say $5,000. So we take $1 million divided by $5,000 equals 200 cases. Now we know that we have to open and close 200 cases a year. All right. If we need to open and close 200 cases a year at an average case value of $5,000 to gross $1 million, to take home $250,000 to live the way we want to live, now we have a real marketing target. Now we have a real target. Now we know how many cases the firm needs to be set up. Now, if we say, let's just say for argument's sake that we're going to turn a case every 6 months, right? That means that we're going to have 100 open cases at any given time. And let's just say for argument's sake that the average associate can handle 50 open cases at a time. That means we need 2 associates. We don't need 4. We don't need 1. We don't need 3. We need 2. Now there's a reality to it. It's grounded in reality. There's reason, there's rationale, there's practical reasons why are we going to need an office at this many square feet? Why do we need this many subscriptions on our case matter management software? Why do we need to start recruiting attorneys? Why do we need documented processes and policies and systems and procedures? Because we're going to have to communicate and keep 2 attorneys on task, right? Now, let's say that our conversion rate of prospective clients to paying clients is, let's just say it's 50%. Every other client says yes, every other prospect says yes, and every other prospect says no. And again, I'm just doing this to make the math easy, right? Well, now we know that marketing can't just bring us 200 prospects. Marketing's got to bring us 400 prospects times 2. 400 prospects divided by 12 means we got to meet with 33 prospective new clients per month. Okay, well, who's going to meet with 33 prospective new clients a month? Who's going to follow up with 33 prospective new clients per month? Who's going to onboard 33 prospective new clients per month? Who's going to make the quality control calls to make sure that 33 new clients per month are getting the welcome packages and the emails and all that kind of good stuff? Now we have a reason why we need to have a non-attorney salesperson. Now we have a reason why we need to have the processes and the procedures. Now it's not just this theoretical exercise that we can ignore. Now it's rooted in reality, right? And now we also have an objective criteria for a marketing budget. Now we know if marketing is bringing us 20 clients a month, it's not enough. Hey, let's celebrate. Marketing brought us 60 clients a month. Holy crap, we're on our way to having a problem. Because if marketing keeps converting, if marketing keeps bringing us twice as many prospects as we planned for, yeah, maybe we're celebrating that our marketing team is doing a great job. But if we don't have the infrastructure, if we don't have the staff to accommodate that, we're on our way to having a bar grievance and eventually a malpractice action. So all this stuff's got to get aligned. Think of it like a garden hose. The garden hose has to be straight. Marketing has to be aligned with sales. Sales has to be aligned with production capacity. Production capacity has to be aligned with physical plan. Physical plan has to be aligned with the team. The team has to be aligned with the financial controls. It's all going to flow. If you get a kink in the garden hose or a kink in the garden hose, you're going to have a problem. That's why it's important to have financial goals.
So I think that's it covered as an awesome explanation of sort of just reverse engineering the leads, marketing, then converting the leads. I think it's a great foundational element to at least meet the revenue goals of a firm. Now, if we switch and just circle back and sort of close that loop on the goals of the owner, and the owner's goals were to work X amount of hours per week and not work 60 hours a week anymore, and tier that down to something that is more manageable. I know you have a framework on sort of how to go about doing that, or at least thinking through that. Could you walk through just a little bit of the framework of, we've talked about the financial control element, but what about if the goal of the owner is to tier down, hours worked by 50% and go from 60 hours to 40 hours? What does that look like? The effects, and just sort of the sort of plan or breakdown of how you do that.
It looks like a lot happier clients. It looks like clients getting a lot more value from the firm. It looks like the firm having a much bigger positive impact in the community. It looks like the entire economy improving with the growth of the firm. And it looks like the owner of the firm and their family being better off. That's what it looks like. The less, and this is the thing that that lawyers have the hardest time with, really breaking the time for money connection that they're fed in law school. And we break the time for money connection and we replace it with the value for money connection. And if I can figure out a way to produce more value for my clients, and I can deliver that value more efficiently for me, I can dramatically boost the profitability of my firm. The clients are happier because they're getting more value. I make more profits and I work less hours. Name one single person who's worse off when you figure out how to do this. You can't. Everyone's better off. The clients are better off. The staff is better off. The owner of the law firm is better off. The owner's family is better off. Everyone's better off when you throw away the time for money trap and you replace it with liberating yourself with time, with money for value. So lawyers tend to be very uncomfortable with the idea of doubling the revenues of their firm because they think the only way to do this is to double the amount of work they do. And no one wants to work twice as much. No one wants to spend half as much time with their family. But it's like driving a stick shift car. I think I used this analogy last time we spoke. You're in first gear. Maybe in first gear, you can go 10 miles an hour before you blow up the engine. And you think, oh my God, I can't go 20 miles an hour. I'm going to blow up the engine. Well, yeah, but you can switch from first gear to second gear. You can document some processes. You can document some procedures. You can systematize parts of your business so you can hire good people, train them on your system, hold them accountable for your system, empower them with that training, and get more done, which delivers more value to your clients. But what happens is lawyers who have never even heard of a business plan before, lawyers who have never read a business plan before, lawyers who have never written a business plan before, a real business plan, they think, oh my God, $1 million firm, I'm going to work myself to death. And nothing could be further from the truth. $1 million firm is easier to run than a $500,000 firm.
I think that's actually a great jumping off point to sort of define, like, what would be the starting place? I've been practicing law for X amount of years. I've hobbled this together. I have, built a practice, a couple $100,000, largely off of referrals, maybe a little bit of marketing here or there. What is the initial jumping off point you would say, all right, I'm going to get serious about this. I want to take it to the next level. I like what Arjon's saying about $1 million practice being easier than a $500,000 practice, which is easier than a $250,000 practice, all the way on down. Where would someone start? What is that initial jumping off point to be like, all right, I'm going to take this serious? Where do they get started?
They get started by taking out a pen and taking notes, because I'm going to tell you exactly what to do right here, right now. This is really simple. It's so simple that most people won't do it. Instead, they'll spend months searching online for something complicated. And I'm telling you, this is how it gets done. Step one, you sit down and you figure out, how do you want to be living your life? Let's say 24 months from now, 36 months from now. Don't go 10 years into the future with fantasy land where you can hide out with a bunch of BS. Today, 36 months from now, how do you want to be living your life? What kind of house do you want to be living in? What kind of car do you want to be driving? What kind of vacations do you want to be taking? What kind of domestic services do you want to employ? What kind of education do you want to provide for your children? How do you want to be living your life 36 months from now? Step one. Step two, figure out what it's going to cost to support that lifestyle. How much will it cost to buy that house and to service the mortgage on that house? How much will it cost to lease that car? How much will it cost to pay that tuition? How much will it cost for those domestic services? Just come up with a number. Step three, if you don't already know the margin, the profit margin on your business, just use 25% as a rough rule of thumb. It'll be close enough for the first pass at this, right? And that's another thing. There's a first pass, then there's a second pass, then there's a third pass, then there's a fourth pass, then there's a fifth pass. And by the time you get to the 37th pass, you'll be in a better position to do the 38th pass and then the 39th pass. And my business this year will gross around $33 million. And you know what we're going to do at the end of the year? We're going to do this exact same exercise again for next year. You keep doing this, you keep doing this, you keep doing this, and you get better at it with practice. So the next step is, I forgot what step we're on. Step 4, I think, is, let's say 25% as a rough margin. So you figure out how you want to be living your life, step 1. You figure out what it's going to cost to live that life, step 2. You figure out your profit margin, your your net operating income profit margin. If you don't know what it is, just use 25% for the time being. Now you know what your gross revenue needs to be. Now you have a real idea of what the gross revenue needs to be. And when someone says to you, how much do you want your firm to gross? You actually have a real number and not just a bunch of BS. All right. Then you got that gross revenue target. You take that gross revenue target and you divide it by your average case value. Oh, I can never tell my average case value. Every case is different. No, there's an average case value. How many cases did you close? How many cases did your firm handle last year? Divide that by your gross revenue, and whether you like it or not, that's your average case value. Now, we could do something to make that better, but it is what it is, and we'll use it to start with, right? So you take your gross revenue requirement, divide it by your average case value, and now you know how many cases you need. All right, well, to have that many cases, how many prospective new clients do I have to sit with? That gives you a marketing target. To handle that many new cases, how many attorneys do I need? How many paralegals do I need, right? And these are all going to be rough numbers the first time you do it. By the third or fourth time you do it, you're going to go back. If by the third or fourth or fifth time you do this, you don't look back at the first time you do it, and if you're not like, oh my God, what a crude, sophomoric, sad attempt that was, then you waited too long to do it the first time. The first time is going to be messy. It has to be. It's your first time doing it. It's okay. The second time will be better. The third time will be better. The fourth time will be better. The fifth time, you look back at the first time and you're like, oh my God, that was terrible. That's okay. That's how it goes. Everyone that you talk to who's got a multi-million-dollar firm, I promise you, I've worked with thousands and I've worked with tens of thousands of law firm owners, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I don't think you're ever going to meet anyone who's helped build more million-dollar law firms than me. And I'm telling you, their first draft was always a piece of crap, but it was the first draft. All right, that's how you do it.
So you mentioned a couple elements in that of, well, that becomes the marketing target. And then, if you got leads in the door, and you briefly touched on this earlier, the sales target. So that naturally ends up being a hang up for a lot of small law firm owners, because physical plant sounds good, and all of these other elements of getting the office right and hiring it, so all of that sounds great, but sales cures all, is the old saying. So on the element of, and you briefly mentioned or touched on it, that having
I don't entirely agree with that old saying, by the
way. I agree too. I agree with what you're saying. I
don't necessarily agree.
It doesn't hurt, but there are other things that could certainly make a bigger difference. So one of the things you touched on a little bit ago was a non-attorney salesperson. And I know that a lot of people, the first thing that they initially hear is tire squealing. Can I even do that? Is that okay? Are they going to know? Are they going to understand the facets of it? That naturally ends up being a sticking point for a lot of people. So I want to circle back to that briefly, just because I know that will stick some people. What does that look like for someone who wants to create the plan, but couldn't even envision when they're making a business plan like this to even have someone in that seat operating that role?
Okay, well, I know we have an episode coming up dedicated to just this subject, so I'm not going to try and cram that whole.
We don't need to go deep, but I want to at least not have that be a linchpin or a sticking element.
So let me make it really easy. All right, you don't need to have a non-attorney salesperson. That's fine. Just if you're completely bent out of shape and you're not yet ready to consider the possibility of having a non-attorney salesperson, definitely make sure you come back for the episode where we talk about it, because it will set you free. It truly will. Do it yourself. Build that into your plan. You need 200 new cases a year. Someone's got to meet with 33 prospective new clients a year. Fine. That'll be you. You meet with 33 prospective new clients every month, convert them into paying clients. When you realize that you can do that, but you can't also service all the clients, well, now you need to hire another attorney. Fine. You don't want to have a non-attorney salesperson. You do it yourself. Hire someone else to practice law and service the clients. That's fine. I don't care how you do it. You can go over the wall. You can go around the wall this way. You can go around the wall that way. You can go under the wall. You can cut a door in the wall. You can do whatever you want. Just don't stop.
So there's another element to this that I think that a lot of attorneys don't necessarily, number one, track or have any idea what the true number is. And that
you could mention almost anything here, couldn't you?
I get, you're probably right, but I'm thinking of two things in particular. The first two elements on the business plan wheel, and that's marketing and sales. How many leads do I need to get in the door? And of those leads, how many people do I need to close? So there's a framework that you have for this. Let's talk briefly on it, but there's a framework for this that you have that everyone who attends, or even if you're watching the recording later, we'll have a link provided where you can download an entire nearly 100-page document on business plans, structure, the marketing elements and things to track, sales elements, things to track, all the way on down the line around goal setting,
et cetera. Something about that, because telling them that there's a 100-page document is not going to make them excited. Let me say something that will get them excited.
Yeah.
This is the exact same business plan workbook that we use. And it's not 100 pages. It's actually much thinner than that. It's very simple. Very, very simple. I mean, I'll give you the 100-page version if you want to share that with your client. That's fine. But I'd rather share the simple, streamlined, not going to teach you everything that you could possibly ever know about writing a business plan, because you don't need to know everything you could possibly know. It's the exact same, very simple little business plan workbook that we share with our own clients, our own members, how to manage a small law firm. We manage over 600 law firms, and every 18 months, we're revising and updating their business plan with them like clockwork. It's the exact same workbook we use. And I'll even share a video that walks them through it piece by piece by piece by piece. And in like one day, you could have your first business plan done.
I love it. So we'll certainly share that then, because I have the 90.
I can share the 100-page one also, but I don't think anyone wants to read that.
I think it's incredibly thorough, and I think that it was valuable for anyone just flipping through. But either way, I think we're going to have something very awesome for people to download. But one of the things I think is just worth talking on is sort of just closing that loop is, what are the frameworks other than just what will be included in the documents that we provide? Are there frameworks? Are there ways of tracking or key elements of tracking that as they're building this out, whether they, I'm tied up for the next week, but in a week from now, I'm going to do this business plan. Are there elements they should start thinking about, whether that's lead to appointment stats? How many leads am I getting versus how many people are coming into an appointment? Are there elements from the marketing side or sales side that people should start at least getting their juices flowing on what they should be starting to consider tracking?
Yes.
And what would those
I'm
be?
doing this from my home office today. If I was in my office, I would pick up the computer, I would carry it outside, and I would show you the wall where we track this. And if I carry this to the wall where we track this, what you'd see is a very, very sophisticated, very, very high-tech, very, very complex and precise system, which cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to engineer and build and create and manage, and requires a team of sophisticated technicians to manage, which is exactly the perfect excuse for why no one watching this could possibly keep track of anything. Oh no, wait a second. This is what you'd actually see if I was in my office. You'd see a wall with Post-it notes. Literally, it's Post-it notes. Post-it notes. A Post-it note and a pen. That's the technology required to make this whole thing work. You start off with how many new prospects do you figure you need to meet with every month? We just figured out the answer is 33 using the math that I described before. So you put out 33 empty Post-it notes on the wall. And you got this cluster of 33 empty Post-it notes. At the beginning of the month, so the last day of the month, last business day of the month, someone's job is to make sure there's 33 empty Post-it notes on the wall. And every time someone schedules an appointment, you take out this device called a pen and you write the prospect's name on the Post-it note. And you move it from this area to that area called scheduled appointments. And then when the client shows up and hires the firm, you move it from this area called scheduled appointments to this other area called new clients. And if the client says, no, I'm not going to hire the firm, instead of moving it to new clients, can you guess where you move it to?
Not
That's
new
right.
clients. Yeah.
You move it to the other area called the people who we met with who didn't hire us, who someone needs to follow up with. This is the system. This is my $33 million system. I'm telling you, every time someone tries to make it fancy and complicated, it screws the system up. This is the system. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't also use technology. What I'm saying is you don't use technology as an excuse. This is how I built my business. This is exactly how I built more million-dollar law firms than I can count. It cuts through all the BS and there's nowhere to hide. and it's out on the wall for everyone to see, so no one can hide from it. And that's part of the reason why the Post-it note system works better than the technology system, because the technology system can be turned off. No one can turn off the Post-it notes. Every time you're in the office, everyone sees exactly where things stand, and there's nowhere to run, and there's nowhere to hide, and it's just staring at you every time you're in the office. This is how you build $1 million firm.
The simplicity of it is awesome.
It pisses people off like you can't believe, because they want to complicate it so they can avoid doing it.
So we actually use the full CRM automation, deal flow stages. And you're exactly right. It's easy to like, I'm just not going to open it right now, or not going to look at it, or any of those things, because I just don't feel like it today.
Now,
having something that's staring, like glaring you in the face every time you walk past it, is not only a great reminder, but it's a great visual to see, where are we standing, and do I need to get my butt in gear? Are we in a good place? Are we going to, continue executing the plan that we currently have? I love it. Super simple.
when we grew How to Manage up to around, I don't know, somewhere around $8 or $10 million, we really embraced CRMs. And we actually do have a CRM also. And so between around $8 or $10 million and around $12 or $15 million, somewhere in that range, we only use the CRM. And everyone was like, oh, look at us, we're so fancy. We have a $15 million business. We have a CRM. And I saw the sales dropping. And so I brought the Post-it note system back. And everyone was like, are you crazy? And I'm like, I might be crazy, but I'm the boss, so do it. And they fought me on it, and I said, if you don't do it, you're fired. And literally, we take the data from the CRM. Think about this. Literally, they go into the CRM and they take the data out of the CRM and they put it on a Post-it note. And they complain about it every month. But I'm telling you, I make a lot more money when I get the data out of the CRM and onto the wall. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run. It's easy for me to manage. I can manage it at a glance. And I literally forced them to take it out of the CRM and put it back out on the wall.
It's so simple. It's like simple. I love it. So I highly recommend that for everyone, because like one of the elements is like, it's scary when you're trying to do the sales, and you're like, how do I track it? How do I, the follow-up elements, the CRM, I'm using a Clio or a this or that, and that, well, it's not perfect. And the time it takes to build it out, I got to hire someone else. Like, you just tick off all of these excuses of why maybe the sales are not there. So the simplicity of the system, I absolutely love. One of the other things that I think is easily overlooked, that you touched on a little bit earlier, is the physical plant element. So when building out a business plan, having the physical plant in the mix, it's one of the elements I think probably people are not considering as much. So can you touch on, when it comes to making a business plan, incorporating the physical plant element, the actual law practice facility itself, what are some of the big things that people need to consider when they're trying to outline or create their plan when it comes to the actual facility?
Well, obviously nowadays, we have a remote workforce. And I think that a big mistake that people make with the remote workforce is to think that because a person is working remote, they somehow don't need to think about the physical plant, right? Particularly if you're working with people offshore. So we have a number of offshore workers, and we take a very active interest in their environment, right? So while we're interviewing them, we want to know, where will you be working from? Take out your phone, jump on a Zoom, and show us the space you'll be working from. We need to understand what environment you're going to be in, right? And, wow, that looks like a really uncomfortable chair. We're going to give you a budget. Get yourself a professional, comfortable chair. You're working for us. I want you sitting on a comfortable chair. I don't want to lose productivity because your chair sucks. We make sure that they're using proper. My plug came out. We make sure that they're using good technology. what does it cost? $1,000 to send a brand new laptop to a person working in Mexico or wherever they are. Oh my God, but what if I fire them and they don't give me the laptop back? Who cares? It's $1,000 laptop. Give them the $1,000 laptop. It's going to make the difference between them being productive or not productive. And if they don't work out, you know what? So what? You gave someone who needs it a brand new laptop. Big deal, right? The point I'm trying to make is, even in a remote work environment, you need to take an active interest in where and how the person is working, because they're working for you and you want them being productive. Obviously, if you have workers here in the United States, you need to be thinking about that. If they're working from home, great. I want to understand the environment that you're working in at home. Are you working in a room with 4 walls and a door? Or are you working from the middle of your kitchen with kids and pets running all over the place on my important confidential information, right? People don't stop and think about this, and you should. Now, obviously, when you're thinking about a physical location, like an office, the most important thing is demographics. Where is your office relative to your clients? Where is your office relative to the courthouse if you go to court on a regular basis? Figure out the demographics of the office. And there's an old saying that people who are good at fishing follow, not me. Fish where the fish are. Put your office where your clients are. If you have a choice between putting an office in the middle of where all your clients are, or having an office right next to the courthouse for your convenience, you'll have a much more profitable business if you put it where all the clients are. I saw years ago a law firm that brilliantly had an office right next to a daycare center, and they did family law. They did estate planning law, and so they specialize in families with young children. So every single year, they got a whole new batch of prospective new clients. They shared the parking lot with this daycare center. And they cooperated, and they said, yeah, and they basically made the drop-off route of the daycare center basically drive through the parking lot of the law firm. You know what I'm saying? Every year they got business from the daycare center. Who would have imagined that? Who was the marketing genius who figured out that putting an estate planning firm that specializes in families with young children directly adjacent to a daycare center was going to produce business? Oh my God. It's so simple.
On the topic of physical plant and location and all of those elements, are there any trends that you're seeing? Because, with Daniel's Head, roughly 8,600 or so law firms that are insured, you're working hands-on in the nitty-gritty on the operations and the CEO capacities for 600 plus law firms. Are there any trends that you're seeing when it comes to operationally and the physical plant? Moving back into the office or staying virtual? Is it more of a hybrid element that you're seeing for the time being? Because it comes up a lot of, I see someone else doing this, but I'm doing this. I don't know if it fits my model. Are there any sort of broad overarching elements that you're seeing when it comes to the physical plant elements?
The trend we're seeing is a hybrid model. We're seeing that law firm owners are trying to get their staff back into the office, and the staff is resisting. And so they're having to offer hybrid opportunities. They're having to say, okay, you know what? Come to the office 3 days a week, work from home 2 days a week. Come to the office 2 days a week, work from home 3 days a week. Or come to the office for these hours. We want everyone here at the same time so we can have team meetings and team trainings and things like that. And I'm seeing that. What we're just beginning to see, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it in the coming years, is more conference room space and less individual office space in law firms, where the lawyer, the paralegal, they come to the office with a laptop and work from an office, not necessarily their office. and then the office is really becoming more of a place to have team meetings. So they're having bigger conference rooms and bigger meeting spaces. That is the trend we're beginning to see with people who are beginning to build out new offices post-pandemic. They're trending that way.
So from a insurance and risk management standpoint, one of the concerns that has come up throughout COVID in a variety of other capacities as it's staying in more of this hybrid model is the protection of data, the access of data, and you can manage all of that and gate all of that in a CRM. But the reality is the field of law is very still heavily paper driven.
Yeah.
So are there controls that you recommend or that you're seeing other people using in this hybrid environment that can mitigate, reduce, or eliminate some of those issues that may pop up when it comes to confidential data, attorney-client privilege, et cetera, that may be best practices that you're seeing mitigating some of that risk?
Well, what's old is new again, right? The best practices from 20 years ago are still the best practices. The best practices for protecting client confidential information then are still the same best practices for protecting client confidential information now. The only difference is the added levels of complexity in the sense that now we've got everything digital up in the cloud. But as you mentioned, the digital up in the cloud is the easy part. I mean, that's the easy part of protecting the data and the client confidentiality. And I just want to give a shout out, Trey. Anyone watching this, if you don't buy cyber insurance from Daniel's Head, you guys sell cyber insurance. If you don't buy cyber insurance, you're crazy. I mean, you might as well ride on the hood of your car. It is not a question of whether you're going to need cyber insurance. It is a question of when you are going to need cyber insurance. And I'll tell you, there's a growing trend in cyber insurance for, people like, oh, I'm just a small firm. That's exactly who the cyber criminals are beginning to target now.
That's right.
Because it's easy for them to gain access to your system because you don't have, huge data firewall security systems. And they're holding you up for $20,000. They're holding you up for $50,000. They're holding you up for $15,000 because $15,000 for someone living in the kinds of places where they're engaging in this stuff, it's a lot of money. $15,000 from you this week, $15,000 from someone else next week, $15,000 from someone the week after that, $15,000 from someone else the week after that. That's $700,000 a year that they lift off of little $15,000 people. And they know that you got $15,000. It's a lot easier to get you to give them $15,000 than it is to get Amazon to give them $10 million, right? Cyber insurance is a really big thing nowadays, particularly because everyone is going to the cloud because everyone's going remote. I am not the person to talk to about how to secure your data with cyber insurance. I've got people on my team, but I am not the person to speak intelligently.
Well, one of the things around that is actually very interesting. So we insure a large defense firm, and I won't say where, and I won't say what the firm is, but a large defense firm who got ransomwared. So a hacker got in, locked them out of their accounts, servers, all of these elements, and basically said, pay us exactly what you said, $50,000, or we're going to delete your stuff. And you have until, Friday or next Friday or something to that effect. There's a deadline on it. And so they're like, what do we do? What do we do? We can't access any of our stuff. They brought extra IT in, couldn't access any of the stuff. They reached out to the FBI, and the FBI is like, we're seeing a lot of this, and we're happy to help, but we won't be able to investigate this for at least 12 months. Yeah. Well, if that hacker, there's a deadline of next Friday, whatever the date was. So they were basically indirectly forced to pay the 15 grand, and you can call it ethics. So I don't know of a better word for it, but there's a honor among thieves, and they gave the stuff back after the 50 grand was paid, and they were back, quote unquote, in business.
That's what I call a fairy tale success story. Let me tell you what happens more often than not. What happens more often than not, and before I get to that, let me go back to saying there is a way that the best practice that we used to follow in like the 1990s is the best practice today, which is to protect yourself in such a way that when the hacker calls you and says, hey, we've ransomwared you, you say, can I use the F word?
We'll bleep it out later.
F off.
Yeah.
You can have it because I got everything backed up somewhere else that you haven't got. So screw you. Back in business. Off we go. That's how we used to do it back in the day, where you would take your disk drive, and you would copy everything to your disks every week, and you would take the disks off site and you'd stick them in your bedroom at home, because what's the chances that your office and your home are going to burn down at the same time? Your office burns down, your office has a flood, your office has a problem. No problem. You go home, you get your discs, you load them into the new machine, you're back in business. That's the way we used to do it in the old days. And that's still the best way to protect yourself. All the cyber protection in the world, all the ransom protection in the world, all the everything in the world isn't as good as just backing everything up in a separate place that they can't get access to, and you'll pay a lot less for your cyber insurance premiums when you can demonstrate that this is how you're doing it.
It's true. Yeah, it's an important aspect no matter the business.
But I want to say, the story you told, that's what we call a huge success story. Most of the time, what we're finding is that when the ransomware criminal gives you back your data, it's been so corrupted by whatever methodology they used to steal it in the first place, that not only do you spend the $50,000 to get it back, but now you spend another $50,000 to clean it up, because they screw up all the data somehow. It gets all scrambled up.
Yep.
And the cyber insurance, it doesn't just pay the ransom, it pays the cost of fixing it when you get that scrambled egg crap back. Again, better than that is having everything backed up in what's called an air gap backup.
Yep. So we'll be able to take some questions via the Q&A or chat here in just a second. And we've got a little bit of time actually allocated for that around business plans, topics, all of those elements. One of the other things that I wanted to sort of at least close this off with, Arjan, is sort of just the mission. When it comes to building out the business plan and the practice, not only is it just the goals of the individual, are there any other elements when it comes to crafting the vision that you say 36 months from now, like you mentioned earlier, that come into play when in regards to helping someone truly craft, the vision of that? Cameron Hale will call it their vivid vision. Any elements around that you would maybe have when it comes to just really more solidifying that 36-month plan, and maybe thinking bigger, any other elements around that as we round it out?
Yeah, I mean, you got to start off with the premise that law firms generate revenue by helping people, right? I mean, that's how law firms generate revenue. They generate revenue by helping. That's where gross revenue comes from. Most lawyers, part of the reason that we went to law school is because we like to help people. Notwithstanding all the lawyer jokes and all the stupid lawyer TV shows and whatnot, people become lawyers because we generally are the kind of people who like to help other people. We generally like to make the world a better place. And your business generates revenue by making the world a better place. Now, it makes a profit by doing that efficiently, but we'll leave that aside for your financial goals. In terms of the mission, how is your law firm making the world a better place? what problem does your law firm solve for its clients? Whether it's immigration, whether it's bankruptcy, whether it's criminal defense, whether it's intellectual property, whether it's helping people start businesses, whether it's family law, or a business like how to manage a small law firm that helps build more successful law firms so that they can help more legal clients. At some point, you got to reduce it down to a number, right? So in how to manage a small law firm, our goal for the past several years has been to reach 1,000 law firms under management. We're currently a little over 600. I think we'll get to 1,000 next year. And then we got to make our next big goal, right? Now that's 1,000 families who are directly benefiting because of the growth of our business. It's 1,000 families, mothers, fathers, spouses, significant others, children, 1,000 households that now have more financial resources because the law firm becomes more profitable. It's 1,000 parents or spouses or significant others who are now able to be more present with their children. It's 1,000 children who are growing up with less financial stress in their household, right? But in our mind, we think, okay, the average $1 million law firm is probably helping between 200 and 500 clients per year, right? So in our mind, that's 200 to 500,000 families who we are able to positively impact when we reach 1,000 law firms under management. So if you have an immigration law firm, for example, you probably gravitated towards doing immigration because you recognize that immigration is a path to a better life for your clients. Well, the bigger your immigration law firm becomes, the more human beings you can help create a better life for themselves in this country. If you do family law, you probably on some level believe that a divorce, as sad and disappointing and heartbreaking as divorces usually are, ultimately leads to a person having a better life. So the more your law firm grows, the more people you can help to create a better life. I mean, I could go practice area by practice area. I mean, you could throw any practice area at me, and it's going to be the same basic thing. So in terms of your mission, if you start with the premise that your law firm generates revenue by helping people, well, then the mission ought to have something to do with helping more people, which then ties into the financial goals. So the financial goals aren't just for you. The financial goals are a way of measuring how big of a positive impact your law firm is having in the world.
I love that. It's a different way of looking at it than probably a lot of people do initially. Just scaling the growth, not only for primary, but secondary impact as well, and even tertiary impact in some elements. So with that said, if you have particular questions for Arjan, it could be about how to manage elements. It could be about the business plan side of things. It'd be a great time to put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. Happy to address some of those around the business plan topics. For everyone that has basically been in attendance, we'll make sure that we follow up with you and get the abbreviated business plan structure and elements.
I'll give you the long, drawn out one that tells you a whole bunch of stuff you don't need to know if you're just interested and curious. Or I'll just give you the abbreviated version, which just gives you the things you need to know to double your firm, to make a plan, to double your firm in the next 18 to 24 months.
Easy. So we'll make sure that everyone gets.
We should A/B test it
and see which people like more.
Yes, the masochist approach or the pragmatic approach.
Yeah, I like it. So one of the things that I think is important to mention as we round out is just calendaring it more than anything. Is just putting the time on your calendar to sit down and do this. So we do it across our businesses. It's an important element. We do it usually middle of December every year in preparation for the next year. Are we still on track with where we want to go? it's an important element that you really have to calendar. If you've never done it before, I wouldn't wait till December. I would just do it now and just start that process. So
Yeah,
highly
I would
recommend it.
calendar a weekend. What I would recommend, sincerely, what I would recommend everyone do is book a staycation. Do not try to do this in your office. Don't even try to do this at home. Book a staycation, take your spouse or significant other, whoever is going to be involved in your thought process of how you want to live your life. Go to a hotel, a resort, someplace luxurious and inspiring and comfortable and nice, and just take a weekend to think through, how do we want to live our life, and then calculate how much it costs and start going through this workbook that we're going to share with you for free together. It really also helps improve communication in the household.
Yeah. Question was, will this be sent? Yeah, we will email it. We won't put it in the chat. We'll email it out to everyone afterwards. The abbreviated simple version of this. Happy to do so.
And we've actually created a landing page for that also.
And
just email it out.
Yeah, I think we'll have Kesley on the team email it out to all of the attendees and all the registrants. We'll also include a link to that for everyone who watches the replay, because I believe on that page we've got the 98 page version and not the abbreviated version. So we'll add the abbreviated version on that page and get that right.
And then we'll make them choose.
Yes, there you go. Choose your path, choose your journey.
One or the other. You can't change your mind later. You're stuck with it.
I love it. Misty says, thank you for another excellent and inspiring meeting. Misty, it's been our pleasure. Any other questions around the topics of business plans or elements that we can help with while we've got Arjan together? Like we said, we'll follow up with an email that includes the link for all of this, the link to the particular landing page to download the business plan elements and get rocking and rolling.
And I don't get anything from this, but I'll just tell you, make sure you've got your cyber insurance, please.
Yes, it's in comparison to the cost that your firm could incur via cyber hack or attack. It is pennies, like literal pennies, as far as what it's the actual cost of an actual hack. And we're seeing it getting more and more expensive. So we've seen a few in the last 6 months that are over $1 million in fees paid via Bitcoin. Or some other cryptos in order to get their elements back, so that's less trackable and traceable. So highly recommend that as well.
It's not the ransom that you need insurance for. It's the cleanup of the data that you need the insurance for.
Secondarily, it's the cost to notify. So all of the governmental regulations that if you are actually hacked, you have to notify all of your client base, and then you have to provide credit monitoring for them and all of those services, especially if you're a decent sized law practice. You've got thousands and thousands of current clients or past clients, could get insanely expensive very, very quick just because of the cost to notify and the credit monitoring that you have to provide. So cyber also covers a lot of those elements. Kesha says, thank you. I enjoy the pain. So I want the long form business plan. So we'll just make it available for everyone. You can choose your path of which way you want to go. The 98 page one or the simple, very concise one that Arjan mentioned. Either way, we'll make it.
Or door number 3.
Which is
door number 3, where you just take the door and you slam it on your hand. You really like to suffer. We can make this as hard for you as you want. Or we can make it easy.
Yep. Really no questions. All the stuff and feedback that we're getting via Q&A and chat is positive. Thank you very much. So happy to do these things. We're doing them every month. I know the rest of the Daniel's Head team will get you guys all squared up with the ongoing dates. I believe we're hammering out dates for the next several months. So we'll just send out ongoing dates for all of the upcoming webinars. We'll include in that also the links for the short form, long form, or slam your hand in the door versions, whatever that ends up being. And look forward to seeing all of you again next month and in the ongoing months as we sort of continue the series of really just helping everyone take their law practices to the next level.
I think we should also mention we have the rest of the year planned out, but if there's specific topics that anyone really wants to know about, we might not change the topic for you, but we could certainly incorporate things into what we're otherwise planning to discuss.
Yep, happy to do it. We want this to be really tailored to the audience and everyone that we're talking to and working with. So happy to incorporate any of those elements. All you really got to do is you can just reply to any email that you get from the Daniels Head team. We'll make sure that those get aggregated into basically a database that we'll use to really craft the experience over the coming. This is our second one, so coming 10 months as we proceed forward. So enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here. It was another awesome session. We'll follow up with all of the emails and content. If you watch the replay later, the download links or the URLs will be somewhere there attached to this video. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next month, and can't wait to continue the series. Take care.
Thank you.